Hi, I'm Max Rodriguez, founder of the Harlem Book Fair, publisher of QBR, the Black Book Review, and we're joined today by Anthony Whyte. A number of years ago, he began writing with a series called Ghetto Girls. That series ended at 6 books. He's written so much more since then, but today is now. And that's a pun because what we're talking about today is his new book, Tomorrow is Now, a science fiction thriller. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So we talked briefly before before we started rolling, and tell us a little bit about your history. You began with the Harlem Book Fair in 2001, I think.
Yeah, the book came out 2000 and end of 2002, and so 2003. That summer was my first Harlem Book Fair. I think you were busy at that time, but I had a chance to see what it was like, crowded and the atmosphere was great. Yeah.
So you've moved now from fiction to science fiction, something you said you've always wanted to do. So tell us about the you've always wanted to do and why it's taken you this long to get to that. I'm asking you that question because there are many writers out there who have ideas about a book, and sometimes it takes a little while.
Yeah, it does. It takes a while to brew and not to duplicate stuff that has been going on, and it's very difficult line to walk. Very fine line because a thin line. Because that thin line, which is one of my title, Kitty Book, got me thinking more about me as a child that I liked, the stuff that I like, and sci-fi, yeah, was one of the stuff. So after Thin Line, it kept brewing, and that was maybe 10 years ago. So it kept brewing and brewing up until now. I was just like, okay, now is the time. Tomorrow is now. I couldn't put it off anymore. The thoughts kept coming, and then the vibe and the feeling, and then as most writers know, that's what you go with. You go with that vibe, that feeling, that the voices in your head, telling you, okay, tomorrow you can't put it off. It's now. So the book title came out like that, and it's my first one. I want to write three of them. It's a military sci-fi, and I'm also military uh, person. So former military, I understand certain things. So I use that to sort of bring the audience into the story, and from there, I just hopefully convince you to, you know, believe what I'm saying.
You were a military man, but specifically, you used to fly helicopters.
Yeah, I did that for a minute. Taught in the flight school, so I understand the trivial it is, the things that you could think about when either before or after you fly or you come down and in most cases at Fort Rucker, Alabama, now Fort Novosel, and maybe the name changes again because it's so crazy. But the association with the military was good because I draw from that experience and then try to bring you into the story so that you don't like, oh, you know what, I don't believe him, so from the outset it's something that you're familiar with or should be or kind of know about the military. So that's familiar. And then I get into the unfamiliar part of it, which was the fun part of it.
You can hear your experience show through with your main character, with Andrew Scott. He too was a pilot, and so tell us about the story. Give us the
So, you,
plot to
so
Tomorrow Is Now.
So yeah, it's simple. Like he, Pine Bush, New York. He grew up in Pine Bush, New York, and Pine Bush, New York is also noted for being the most where the most UFO reports are made in on the East Coast. So that's where his hometown is, and that's why it's specific because part two takes place there. So in part one, he's going through flight school with a flight instructor, and they're about to take a test, instrument flight test, nighttime. So it's without the instrument flight is kind of difficult because it's without any other uh, controls. So you have limited controls, sort of. And then he's in night vision goggles, which makes it worse. So, you know, it's like very, very technical when it comes to instruments. You're flying, looking at your instrument, and you're directing the aircraft, because you're looking at the instruments and directing it as such. So if anything goes wrong with the function of those instruments, everything is off. You know, you can see the whole thing is off. And then with the pressure of being in a test situation with a flight instructor who's a higher rank, it sort of make the tension a little higher. So they go from there, and there's an accident, and he blacks out, and he winds up in Walter Reed. During recovery, he finds himself with another person who eventually dies or reportedly died, and so after his recovery, he's discharged. He goes back home under certain conditions, veteran conditions, where he's receiving this kind of psychological help. But the psychological help is twofold because it's sort of it's a mind control situation, and it's also helping him. So on one hand, he feels like, hey, I'm being helped. And on another hand, it's like, am I really being helped? Do I just keep going through this for the rest of my life? And then someone comes along and said, hey, you could break out of this. And that's where the story begins. And that person who identifies himself as a flight instructor. And he's like, you're supposed to have died. And, you know, so the story starts from there. The real sci-fi stuff. It's like, I got you into the situation, and now can I get you to believe, you know, suspend your disbelief? That's where I'm at. So once you read it, you could tell me, hey, no, you did not, you did not suspend my disbelief at all. Or you could say, hey, that was a good job. But that's where the child in me, you know, started playing with your mentality. So.
And who's the reader for the book?
Well,
I mean, we have Octavia Butler and so many other
yeah,
more contemporary
yeah,
sci-fi writers,
yes.
Tanana Reeve Dew, many others. We can't say that sci-fi is for young adults, for young adult boys. Who's your audience?
My audience is sci-fi readers, at 18 through whatever. Now, there's, like you said, a category of readers who like to read certain genres. And now that I'm into this and I'm in it fully, I want to see what the genre is about, because I have learned a long time ago that a good book will find its audience. So that's my premise. I'm not even, like, oh, who's going to... A good book will find its audience. It's...
And is this a good book?
I want the readers to tell me that, like a reader should say, hey, that's a good, or they might say, I don't know, man. Go back to writing that Ghetto Girls. What are you writing? You got a new...
So I got to ask, is there a love interest, and how is that love interest imperiled?
Okay, so in the story, Andrew Scott, is married to Jessica Scott, and Jessica Scott is she's got privilege. Her family are very well off, and Andrew Scott's family also worked for her family's business. So there's some dynamics there. But the main one is that Andrew was a star athlete from that town. And coming back was sort of a humbling experience for him. So when he left with a great hurrah, hey, there you go, our, great athlete. And he returned humbly, uh, be, be medically discharged and not completing the course that he set out to do. So there was failure that he had to
So
deal with.
that sounds real life. Where's the science fiction in that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I had to bring you into the life of these characters somehow. Empathy is one of my ways of doing it. So maybe, someone will say, I'm empathetic. I feel for that person. I feel for Andrew and what he has gone through. Or they may say, I understand what the wife is going through now, that she's also, there's a dynamic where he has a best friend, Lance Kovachev, and Lance is, his parents are also affluently, so he's privileged. And Jessica and Lance are good friends, so they support each other since they've known each other a long time. So there's a dynamic there where Andrew feels left out of the family and he has to assume leadership somehow. But because of his condition, he's unable to. So he feels less than. So getting the idea from this guy, James Markell, who comes into his life and say, hey, you got superpowers you could use. The only reason you can't use it is because you keep going to this counseling that they authorize. So he's like, oh, should I keep the superpower? And now he has to make a decision.
So does Andrew save the day?
Look, you got to
No,
read
no,
it.
no. Does he save the planet?
Well, that is, okay, so in doing this book, I didn't visualize it as being very lengthy. So now I've got to figure out how to bring you into part two. So there is a part two where he understands now fully, because it takes a while, just like it takes me a while to figure out it takes a while for him to understand what he needed to do, what his true north was, what his purpose was in life. So now he's like, this is my purpose. Now I know what I have to do. And he gets that in part two, after the birth of his child. So now the child is born with this special ability, but no one is aware of it until she starts exhibiting this thing. And they're like, what the? So that's part two, basically. And it's called No Ordinary Life. Right now, that's the working title. I'm on it. But
That,
yeah.
that you say it takes a while, but my reading of it was that it was actually very quick paced. That it was a well paced book. I just wanted to say that because I heard you say it takes a while, but
Well, no.
the only thing
It
that
takes a while to unveil or for Andrew to discover his truth. If you read part two, you'll understand that it's got to be more to this. I think that's an ending. That's a belief. That's what I wanted the reader to conceive it, mentally. Like when they finish the book, like, okay, it's a finished story and he made a decision, but there's something else for him to do. He can't be just walking around knowing without well, now that I'm talking about it, he doesn't know, because that gift, he had to make a decision, and that gift became part of the decision. So when you find your true purpose, it just hits you. There's no time to it. You just find it, boom, and you're like, oh, that's my true purpose. I got to go do it. So that's what happens in part two. And, like I said, hopefully I'll finish it, because I'm getting into the habit of writing these series, and It's another series. How long it's going to be? Because as a writer, I'm the first time reader, so I don't know
Mm.
until it's finished. Like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, there's got to be a part three, or in my kid's mind, I've got to resolve this. So, that's the
You
process.
know, Anthony, what I'd like about your writing, especially in Tomorrow Is Now, is your character development. Andrew is credible. He's empathetic. He's wounded. He's frightened because he doesn't know. His world is kind of shaken. And I know people like that, right? I know people like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
me
so
too.
this character, I want to see his journey. So what I like about your writing is that you make very credible characters, and I want to know what happens with them. You keep talking about part two, but I look forward to part two because I found part one to be very compelling.
I thank you.
What else should readers know about the book? Um, what is there anything that you might want to say to a reader, and keep your eye on this, or anything at all that you might want to share?
Well, I mean, look, the thing with writing a book, the first time author in terms of fiction, science, sci-fi fiction, military sci-fi, it's uh, it's just great to have feedback, and I'm hoping. I'm not scared of getting the nasty feedback. Just the feedback is good. So that's all I want. When you buy, give me feedback. Tell me I'm whack. Tell me I'm good. Maybe whatever. But the feedback is good, and hopefully I will continue to grow. I That's what I'm here to do. Like just grow as a writer, and I've been doing it for a while. I think about it all the time. I write every single day, and I've done a lot of stuff in terms of writing and literature, and I feel good about it. And I feel like it's something that I want to continue to do until, it's like breaking my fingers off the computer. So I got it. Yeah, and I do it cyclic. It comes to me, and I know it because you walk. Authors will tell you walk, and people are like, "How did you come up with that story?" It just comes to you. There's no special thing. I wasn't thinking. I was actually thinking, like, how dope it would be to have superpower, real, and how would that come about? How would that differently? Because the Superman is born on another planet, da, da, da. But how about someone who's right here on this planet, and you can relate to this person, and then somehow they develop superpower? There's an eagle that visits me he's outside. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got distracted by the eagles. I love the eagles here. I'm in Yonkers, New York. It's beautiful here.
Where can we find Tomorrow Is Now?
So currently, it's on Amazon. Currently, Amazon Kindle, but it will be a print book. There's a print book that will be available in a week. In this week, September. By the end of the week, it should be available. The 7th is the 8th, somewhere around there, and then you'll see me around, and hopefully we'll meet you at Harlem Book Fair this year.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm with Anthony Whyte, author of Tomorrow Is Now. As he said, and I love this line, Anthony, as the author, you are the first reader. That's a great insight, and it certainly puts you in the seat of the audience that you're writing for. I like that sensibility. And my experience has been that authors who sort of move in to their writing with that point of view always find a way to touch their readers. So I look forward to reading part two, and I certainly recommend that everyone read part one. I love the cover of that book. It speaks to possibility. It reminds
Design.
me of a old show that many listeners won't remember, The Outer Limits. You can look that one up if you don't know that show,
I,
The Outer Limits.
yeah, kind of
No, I was
familiar.
going to say Rod Sterling, but that's Twilight Zone. I don't know who
Yeah,
did The Outer Limits, but it was a great sci-fi show. Thank you all for
I
joining
will.
us. Thank you, Anthony,
Thank you.
for your next work and the next coming work, part two. I'm not going to ask you when that's scheduled to come out because I know that you're working on it, but read the first. We'll let you know about the second. Thank you
Thank
for
you very
joining
much.
us. I'm Max Rodriguez, founder of the Harlem Book Fair, publisher of QBR, the Black Book Review, and we'll see you at the next book. Thank you.
Thank you.